welcome to Timber and Chain. I'm Elisa Hopper, and today I'm going to be making my most favorited item on Etsy, a polymer clay wall hanging with geometric shapes and a tassel. Join me. To make this polymer clay wall hanging, you can choose any color palette and any shapes, and for this one, I've chosen a variation on circles in earth tone shades. For all these shapes, I use only 2 round cutters. The larger one is this straw holder I found at the one spot at Target for $3, and I have sanded down the top so the edges are smooth. And the other is a cookie cutter. The purpose of these videos is to show that you can make really fun art pieces without having to buy a bunch of expensive materials and just use what you have. So to get started, I roll out each color separately using a pasta machine, but you can just use a rolling pin or an acrylic roller if that's what you have. The machine is really great for even thicknesses. I use 2 layers on the thickest setting for these, and I'm starting with the top circle and working my way down the line. For the top circle, I'm using translucent in Sculpey 3 because I really prefer its translucency to the Primo shade, and it doesn't give me any problems like the opaque Sculpey 3 colors do. Once I cut out the circle, I run my fingers around the edges to remove any fragments I don't want, and then I use synthetic gold leaf sheets for some shine. These, along with a full list of tools and materials, can be found on my blog, listed in the description below. I tear the gold leaf by hand because I want larger pieces here, but you can also buy them in flakes. For the half circle, I use plain white Sculpey Primo for this. You can use Sculpey 3, but be prepared for unwanted bubbles during the curing or baking process. I use the same cutter for the circle and then a blade to cut it in half. For the next shape, I combine yellow with jewelry gold for a mustard color with a little shine. And to mix it, I just pass it through the machine over and over and over again. You can absolutely mix this by hand. It just takes a little longer. Again, I roll it out, fold it over, and cut a circle. For the moon shape, I position the same cutter just about an inch below the top and cut it again. The next color I use is gold, and this half circle requires a slightly smaller circle cutter. But again, whatever shapes you choose are perfect. Moving down the line, I wanted a slightly rusty pearly red, so I combine red and pearl, and then I add in some of the gold. I follow the same moon shape process here. For the triangle, I use a dark brown and combine it with the same red as before. Here I cut out the smaller circle, cut off a slice, measure for the center, and align the blade from the center mark to the 2 bottom ends and cut a triangle. I space them apart on a parchment-covered baking sheet just so they're not touching. Now I add the texture just before baking. Texture on clay is my favorite part because the options are endless. You can use anything around the house or even in the yard. Your only limit is your imagination. For the dotted holes, I just use the end of a paintbrush handle. For the cross-hatching, I use a produce bag from the grocery store. I think this held avocados or something. Side note, these also make great little dresses for clothespin doll ornaments. Look, I don't mean to encourage hoarding, but here I am with a scrap of produce netting. So anyway, press the netting onto the clay evenly and then gently push with a roller. For the herringbone pattern, I have these Ralph Lauren crystal glasses from back in the day. I rarely use them for drinking, funny enough, but they are great for clay patterns. I center the line on the shape and then mold the clay around it gently, rolling the pattern just enough to show, being careful not to reshape the moon. Once the texture is done, I bake these at 275 degrees for 45 minutes. I know the instructions say 15 minutes for each 1/4 inch, but I don't want them to bend or be too soft, so a little more time is required. Really quickly, if you enjoyed this video, please take a second and subscribe and give it a thumbs up. It really helps me making more of these. While the shapes bake, I make a tassel from cotton rope. You can make these several different ways and with any yarn or rope or thread that you want. But I just cut lengths of rope, twice the length of the tassel I want, thread a long piece of jute in the center, and fold over the rope. Then I wrap some scrap leather I had on hand around it a few times, gluing tiny pieces as I go, just to stabilize it and keep the rope from moving. This is lambskin, so it's extremely soft like ribbon and wraps super easily. Once the shapes are out of the oven and completely cool, I need to drill the holes. I use a regular power drill and an 1/8" drill bit. With clay, I always use a dry sponge underneath to prevent breakage. If I need to, I measure the center of the shape and drill a hole on the top and bottom for the rope. When all the holes are drilled, I take that long rope on the tassel and start to connect the pieces, starting from the bottom and working my way up to the very top circle. The easiest way to do this I've found is to fold over the jute into a tight little crimp with your finger and push it through the back using a pointed tool if necessary, pulling it through in the front and then splitting the rope and pulling that long remaining piece all the way through. Pull it up the back and do the same at the top. For the top hole though, I pass the rope through the back a second time using a tool to help. Split the loop and pull the long piece through the split. Follow suit with all the shapes. I will admit this gave me a little trouble on a couple of the shapes. It takes a little while, but it ensures even hanging. For the very top holes on the top piece, you could just tie it off at the top and use it as a hanger. That would probably be the easiest. Because I use chain as a hanger, I fold the top rope pieces over the top and tie them off behind the circle. Then I thread a length of chain through and connect it so it's one continuous chain loop. And there you have it. I'd love to see this with different color schemes or different shapes, so be sure to tag me on Instagram at Timber and Chain if you make it. And as always, leave a comment below with any questions or ideas for what you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching. Now go make something amazing.